so what sound can do is it can bypass our thinking mind and get directly into the body on a cellular level. And so what that will do once it's the sound is in the body, it reorganizes the cells into these, as we were talking about earlier, the beautiful geometric shapes. So it's getting the body's crystalline back to where it should be, back to a balance. And it's doing that within the body, whether the mind is involved or not. You know, that mind can still be thinking, is this working? What is happening? But it doesn't really matter because the sound is working on a cellular level. So it's in that way, it's pretty much great for everything.
Mm.
So whether it's physical trauma, whether it's emotional trauma.
Katie, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to appear as a guest on my podcast. You're a sound healer based in California. You channel frequencies, tones, and energies to help people get unstuck if they feel they lack purpose in life and to help them move forward. Perhaps we can start there. What is sound healing and how does sound healing help people?
Sure. Well, firstly, awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Lovely to appear and hi to all your audience. Yeah, sound healing. That's a big question and a beautiful question. Sound is one of the oldest healing modalities we have on this planet. And if we think about sound in the form of um, just music, for example. So if we are feeling sad one day, we might listen to a song that we'll put on and it brings us joy and we can start moving and start dancing. And so we instantly feel better. So our vibration has changed. Or the same thing if we really need to release something, maybe we'll put on a super energetic song that we can really like to. So that in its sort of day to day, you know, music sound is just really, really powerful for bringing and moving emotions, so pulling emotions up. And then the specifics of sound, if we think about a lot of the tribal communities, so like the African tribes, where they'll sing a lot and they'll dance a lot and they'll drum. So again, it's moving all of that energy, and the Native American, the Aborigines, you know, the endless tribes, especially the ancient tribes, the native earthbound, you know, people who are really in connection with the earth, they really understood sound and its power to move, and then also the community that that brings. You know, people singing together, people dancing together, people drumming together. So it's one of those. And then even we have things like a cat purr. You know, if a cat sits on your lap and it purrs, there's actually science behind that now to show that that frequency of the cat purr is incredibly healing to us. So there's, and then there are sounds that can be really disturbing. You know, if we live in a city and there'll be, you know, like a jackhammer sound, you know, we can feel how that gets us really tense. So again, that's power of sound. It's just, it's got this ability to move and you know, either expand us, our emotions, or you know, contract if it's something that's really dissonant, something that we don't like the sound of. But it's, and then we have ultrasound. You know, we've been using ultrasound for years. And then if you look at ancient history and you look at go into the pyramids and how these big stones were moved back, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago, there's lots of evidence coming out now that they used some kind of sound technology, sound waves to move the stones. So it's, the subject is huge and incredible. And then in relation to how it works in our bodies, because sound is frequency, it each. I don't know if you've ever seen Dr. Emoto's work. He's a photographer who has a microscopic camera. He's a scientist, and he takes photos of water with, and he'll play some music to water, and it might be really beautiful music. And he'll take photos of the crystals that are formed by the water, which are perfectly geometric shaped. And then he'll play something that's quite dissonant, and the crystals will be all kind of a bit. Ugh.
Yeah.
Then if you think about our body, which is 70% water, when we've got these beautiful sounds coming in, it's aligning all of our cells and, making geometric patterns within the water within our body. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Well, I mean, you also say, I mean, that the great Edgar Cayce said that the medicine of the future will be music and sound.
Mhm.
And you also say that sound can reach the deeper, sort of hidden subconscious, bypassing the mind, um, reaching those sort of stuck, sort of old patterns in our subconscious minds and gently shaking stuck emotional energy sort of loose. Um, so what typically happens during a sound healing session, and in what circumstances might a person benefit from a sound healing session?
Great question. Well, sound, if we think about our emotions in that we have either buried by choice, or most of it is not by choice. We just, something will happen in our life. Um, and often when we're younger, there's some, it could just be we've been spoken to in a way like, don't do that. And suddenly we shut down. And so that we then start protecting ourselves. We don't want that to happen again. And then we go through life and more things happen and more things happen. And there's always this like contraction of, oh, I don't want that to happen. So it gets buried, buried, buried. And so this these emotions that we're burying into our body, they have to kind of go somewhere. So they end up stuck because emotion is, energy in motion. When we push that down and it's stuck in our body, it starts causing physical manifestations, but also mental, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. So you're quite right in saying, yeah, sound. So what sound can do is it can bypass our thinking mind and get directly into the body on a cellular level. And so what that will do once the sound is in the body, it reorganizes the cells into these, as we were talking about earlier, the beautiful geometric shape. So it's getting the body's crystalline back to where it should be, back to a balance. And it's doing that within the body, whether the mind is involved or not. That mind can still be thinking, is this working? What is happening? But it doesn't really matter because the sound is working on a cellular level. So it's in that way, it's pretty much great for everything. So whether it's physical trauma, whether it's emotional trauma, and most physical trauma in the body, unless it's some kind of leg break or something like that, is coming from something that's going on in the mind. So and then in a session, your second part of the question. So in the general sessions of sound healing, most of the time, the person is just lying down or in a relaxed state, and then the sound healer is doing their work around them. So the great thing is the person doesn't have to do anything. So it's beautifully receptive. It's a lovely, relaxing way to release. Um, and then there's different types of instruments that are used and voice. So I work specifically with voice as well as sound healing instruments, um, because voice is our most clear, pristine, crystalline sound. It's coming from us. And also, I sometimes will, if the person wants to make sounds too, I really encourage that because, again, that's helping people move things. So sound is just it's it has it just has so many benefits, that it is good for pretty much anything. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've listened to some of your guided meditations and songs. The lyrics, the vocals, the sound are, to me, feel therapeutic. Especially in your guided meditation named Your Voice is Your Truth, you essentially reaffirm the belief that our voice matters and that our voice is beautiful and that it matters. And this is a message actually that many of us were not really told in childhood, and we cannot really blame our parents because they weren't told this message either when they were young. So in that sense, your meditations and songs really feel therapeutic and faith affirming in a sense, and uplifting. Where does the inspiration for these lyrics and sounds of vocals come from? Whether that's sort of a guided meditation meant for sort of a general, sort of a wider audience, or specifically in a one-on-one session with a person who's dealing with a specific dilemma?
Yes, so your voice is your truth was incredibly, that was a personal meditation for me because how it started, because I was struggling with my own voice, which is a story I know we'll get to a bit later when we talk about previously what I was doing. But then when I realized how much trauma most of us have around our voice, and when I say trauma, it's as you mentioned, a lot of it comes from parents, but they're just doing the best they can. You know, they're like you say, it's everybody is doing the best they can. They don't know any better. There's just so many times in our life where our voice is shut down, where we're told, to be quiet, be seen and not heard is is quite a big one. So all of these words, and then often there's, as women too, the expression of voice and the expression of emotion, and also for men, because it's a different, men expressing certain emotions can often be seen as, oh, he's a
Yeah.
baby or whatever. And then with a woman, it's like, oh, she's really emotional. So there's the trauma around that too, of actually expressing the voice. And the voice is, I mean, it's our signature, it's our personal signature, it's who we are, it's our truth, it's our authenticity. So with that particular meditation, I used a bowl, which was the very first or the second bowl I bought actually. It's a bowl that I call the Tesseract because it has Tesseract salt in it. It has platinum and it has aqua aura gold. So it's a three alchemy bowl, and I can explain a little bit more about the alchemies. But it was an F sharp bowl, so it's the thyroid gland. The F sharp is the thyroid gland in the endocrine system. So right around the throat. So between the throat and the heart. So it was, that bowl, as I was playing it just helped me feel open. I was like, the voice feels open, the channel feels open. And the actual, for that particular, the lyrics in that, it just, the color of the bowl is a very sort of gorgeous turquoise. And it just, it's like truth. It just kind of said truth to me. So that was where the words came through. And then also the sound. So the voices that come through are sometimes mine, but often they are different energy sounds that I'm not, I would say, are not my own. They're not sounds that I normally make. But I once I can open myself as a vessel for these energies to come through, they will be specific to what I'm asking for. And what I was asking for at that point is to help people express their truth. So in that particular, there's the energy that's coming through, the energy sound in that particular meditation is my voice, but then there's also some very ancient. The deeper voice that comes through is very, very ancient, and it's like these ancient beings, these ancient our ancestors coming through to help move that energy. And so that was so when I'm at that, because I knew that was going to be for a group of people, I asked for the best, the highest sounds to come through for the group of people trying to express their voices. And then in the one-on-one sessions, the voices that come through are very particular to what that person needs. So it's often it's their guides, it's again ancestral, it may be cosmic. So it's whatever that particular person needs. Those voices come through, and I can't sort of tell, is it this person, or is it, it's just, it feels like energy to me. So I can always tell whether it's really ancient energy, whether it's sort of a cosmic energy, or whether it's angelic. You know, the energies feel slightly different depending on what that person needs at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where the sounds are coming from.
Yeah. You mentioned in another interview that some people during a one-on-one session they have physical reactions actually to the sound, and some might burp, some might fall asleep, and um, are there? Could you perhaps share, without, of course, disrespecting a person's sense of privacy, but what you notice actually during these sound healing sessions in terms of how it heals and benefits people, or what kind of reactions they have during a session? Yeah.
Yeah, so it can be very different per person. What I do notice with, I would say, 99% of everybody is it's incredibly relaxing. So there is always a moment where they are in a very deep state of, whether that's, you know, sleeping or an incredibly deep state of meditation. Some people do that for the whole session. And what I've learned about that through my own sound, because often I can fall asleep if I'm listening to certain sounds, and what I've learned about that, and also certain channels, is that if the mind is like trying to be involved, the body will just shut the mind. It will just like, we're just going to shut you down so that this sound can just completely work, which I think is so beautiful. It's like the energy's doing that. But yeah, burping, coughing can be quite a common one because stuff is coming out. So when there's a big release happening, there can be any kind of vocalizing, you know, and when I'm working with the clients on Zoom, and I record all the sessions, so the clients have their microphones muted, so they can make any sound they want, and I encourage that because any sound can just bring out a lot of release. But yeah, burping is very common. And tears can be another, you know, tears is another beautiful way of releasing, whether that can be tears of joy, or that can be some tears of sadness, whatever. Because often, I remember one particular client, she actually had her guide that she had been working with when she was much younger, but had kind of shut that part of her down, shut that psychic part of herself down because of, you know, comments that people were making. She felt, and we all you know, have that in us, because over the past lives we've all been told, you know, you can't express your magic because often you get burnt at the stake or something equally horrible. So she'd shut that part of her down, and that guide came back in the session. She saw the guide and was able to get that connection back, which she hadn't had for years. So that was incredibly beautiful. And yeah, people will see a lot of color, because color is also, you know, frequency and vibration. That color is incredibly powerful too, and color and sound work beautifully together. So often people will see colors. Um, and they'll get, you know, messages. They can, so I often encourage it after the session, if sitting in silence after the session, whether it's just 5 minutes or if you can do longer, is beautiful, because the silence is just as powerful as the sound. So after the sound has done its thing, just sitting in silence, allowing that body to balance. And then often messages will come up, or ideas will come up, and so, you know, it's great to just write those down. But and some people, I do have one client who loves to move, and loves to, you know, and I actually like that too, to move the body when the sound is coming through, because it can be you know, to kind of shake, if you're trying to shake something off, it can be, so there can be that physical reaction too, which is quite beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your own stories are also quite interesting actually, because you weren't born a sound healer. In fact, you had a corporate career for many, many years. And so how did you go from having a corporate career in the music industry to eventually finding your own voice, so to speak, and finding your own sort of creative expression and role to play in the world? Yeah.
Great question. Yeah, it's a really interesting story, and I think many people have similar stories. I'll keep it quite short, because, but in as a child and as a young adult, I guess all through, probably up until 18, 19, I loved to sing. Singing was my passion. And that was all I wanted to do. So it didn't, I'd already decided, when I was 5, whatever, I'm going to be a pop star, you know. So it was always something that was in me. And I loved singing, and I loved, I had my aunt at the time, Auntie Vera, she used to run Abbey Road Studios, which is the big studios in London where the Beatles first started. So, I had uh, my auntie in the industry in that way, and then my parents loved music and they were always playing music. So it was very big within me. And there was some trauma around school. When I left school, music was seen as it was never seen as the arts weren't taken as seriously as the more academic subjects, I can say. So you know it, the music education at school was pretty terrible. There were certain things I wasn't allowed to do. I was pushed more towards you know subjects that I wasn't interested in, that weren't in the arts. So I kind of left school with like, I don't want to do any more study. I'm done with that. I want to. So all that was my motivation. And I had some band. I was in bands. I was doing some singing. I had a few singles out. Was working with different dance producers. And then I ended up and I ended up working in a bank at the beginning, but then I ended up working in the music industry. Just pure luck at the time. I had a friend who was working. They needed help, and so I started working at Warner Music. And what happened at that time was I was starting to send my songs into different record labels, and trying to get a record deal. But I was getting so much rejection. You're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not this enough, just not enough. And as an artist, you need to fit in this tiny box. And obviously, as human beings, we don't fit in tiny boxes. So I was getting constant rejection and constantly hearing that my voice wasn't good enough. So there starts the trauma, and that goes on. So I start working in the music industry because I feel like that will help my career, but as an artist. But what ended up happening was the because it was and I was in many different areas within the music industry, but because there was that underlying sense of, you're not an artist, you're not an artist, you're not good enough to be an artist. So I kind of went, okay, I'm not an artist, but I'm in this industry, and now I help other artists. So I went through it for a very long time in different roles within the industry, helping other artists, but just beating myself up that I was not good enough. So that went on for a number of years until and within this, whilst doing this job, I was also, because I was feeling so bad about myself, I just was on this self-help journey. That was kind of, I had my corporate music industry, and then on the side I was reading pretty much every single book, and went into Buddhism, channeling, just was like trying everything I could, trying to help. And also physical therapies, because I was having a lot of, the emotional trauma was manifesting itself in shoulder pain, back pain, digestive issues, lots and lots and lots of digestive issues, and then depression. And so through that I started doing having cranial sacral therapy, and I fell in love with that therapy because it's so gentle. And just by touching the body, you can feel what the body is doing. And I was like, this is so cool. You can feel the energy in the body, you can feel the cells moving, you can. So I ended up studying in that, and that was and so then I had a plan. I was like, okay, I'm going to leave the music industry, and I'm going to do cranial sacral therapy because I love this. And so I was doing that alongside, and then I started playing around because I'd lost all my passion for music at that point, because it wasn't enjoyable anymore. But then I did have one crystal bowl, what they call a practitioner bowl. It had a handle, and it was quartz crystal, and you could swirl it. And I knew that it just made me feel amazing. So when I was doing some cranial sacral, I would go over people's bodies with this as well. I would play and just let it, and I could just see the instant, people would just, if they were a little tense, they'd just, everything would relax. So I then I had a keyboard, and then I started playing around with my keyboard, and I started using voice again. And so I started making music in a whole different way, as opposed to making music that, has to be a certain way so that it can be released into the pop charts.
Yeah.
Um, it was like, well, let's just make these sounds that sound good. So that was how the journey started into me making music again. And then the more I played around with sound, the more things started to heal for me, and the more I realized how powerful it was. And so then I went into a deep dive journey within sound. And then during the pandemic, which I think changed so many of us in the way of made us realize, like, wait, hold on a minute, I'm in this stress thing over here. I can't do this anymore.
No.
And I was working with Belinda Womack, who I know you've spoken to, or she's going to be on your podcast soon. And she really helped me find that, understand that sound and my voice was a part of, that's who I am. That's what I should be bringing into the world. I don't need to be in this other job, which is making me ill. So through working with Belinda, I was able to quit that job. And then I started off on the sound journey, as in for full time as a sound practitioner. And that was August 2020. And then within that time, I ended up meeting Lee Harris, who I'd known for a long time. And we ended up connecting through a little meditation I'd made that I sent to my subscribers at the time, which was just a small list. Posted it on Instagram. He heard it, and he was like, I love this. Have you thought about making an album? Do you have more of this to make an album? So beautiful story. He has a little record label called Golden World Music, which he puts his music out and other artists. So I ended up getting my record deal at 50, which is amazing. And so I made an album, but it was an album of sound healing songs for myself, because it was healing me while I was working on it, but for the world. So it was like being able to bring that music through. I did make that album, but it wasn't the album I thought I was going to make in my 20s, which would have helped nobody, or so it was a beautiful story. The sound, me playing with that sound, it opened me up to for the universe to then go, oh, you wanted to make an album, we remember that. Here we're going to bring in this wonderful person that can help you do that in a way for your highest good and for the people's listening highest good. So that's, at that point I was like, there's just nothing more powerful than sound.
Yeah, yeah. I listened to the album yesterday, Medicine Songs, and especially the song You're Divine. I play that one on repeat. It's beautiful, just therapeutic and uplifting and beautiful. Yeah.
That song actually came from, I was having a pretty rough day, and I just heard the words, you are alive. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I'm alive. This planet is amazing. So that song the words I had first are, you are alive. And, that comes in, so it's, you are divine, you are alive. But that's where it came from. It was like this magical moment of realizing that it doesn't matter what's going on. We are here on this planet at this time. And that's something to be grateful for. We are living beings in this beautiful world. So that's where that particular song started from. And I was like, if I'm feeling like this and I need to be reminded that I'm alive and that I'm a divine being having a human experience, then I feel like other people could be reminded of that too. That might help. So that's where that song came from.
Yeah. And you use also certain specific instruments. You spoke about as sort of briefly, crystal balls and also the shruti box. What is, or in what way do they have a healing effect, these crystal balls? I'm really, sort of, my knowledge of sort of crystal balls is very, very limited. So I'm eager to find out.
Yeah, so I'll start with the shruti box, because that's quite an easy one. And it's my favorite, really, out of all the instruments, because it is the sound of it, it's made, it makes it sound through air. So it's kind of like an accordion, you play it like this, you squeeze it, the air comes in, and that's what pushes the notes out. And it's a drone, what they call a drone instrument. So it will play a flat tone, or not a flat tone, a continual tone all the way through. You can change the note, but I prefer it to just have it a drone sound, which just, it's on one note or one chord. And so what that does for the brain is it entrains the brain and helps shut the brain, not shut the brain down, but helps shut the chatter down. So the brain just entrains with this sound, and because it's air, it has this kind of motion to it, which is very soothing. But then what it also does, because it's this drone, and it's this kind of squeezing motion, it just has this miraculous effect of pushing stuff out. So when there's stuff that's really deep rooted, that's when I love to use the shruti, because it gets right in, and I see it kind of pushing the energy up and out. So that's a beautiful instrument. And then the crystal bowls, that they are amazing. Crystal alchemy bowls. They are they're quite a new. So we have the Tibetan and the Himalayan bowls, which are also beautiful. Been around for centuries. Um, the alchemy bowls they're all made of quartz crystal, but then they have different elements added in them also. So whether that's another type of crystal, or whether that's a mineral or a stone. So for example, I have an amethyst bowl here. So there's quartz crystal with amethyst. I have what else is down there? We have the grandmother and the grandfather bowls, and they have iron oxide in them, which is really good for the blood. And they're sort of contact to our ancestral. They're like the divine feminine and the divine masculine energy. So these bowls are amazing, and the company that makes the bowls I use, Crystal Tones, um, they've only been around for sort of just I think 22, 23 years. So they're this incredible, like, new technology, if you want to call it that, but based on something that is so ancient. So, and each bowl is at a different frequency. They're usually 528 hertz, which is the frequency of love, 440 hertz, which is what modern music is tuned to, and 432 hertz, which is the frequency of Mother Earth. And it depends. People are drawn to different bowls. Most of my bowls are 432. I'm very much drawn to that frequency of Earth. Um, so there's the frequency that is part of the power. Then you have the note of the bowl. So I have a chakra set of bowls and an endocrine set. So the endocrine set are the sharp notes, and then the whole notes are the chakra set. So for example, C is the root chakra, and D is the sacral, and so and it goes up. So you have each bowl then is working on a specific part of the body, um, and then you have the size of the bowl. So whether if it's a big bowl, it's very low, so it's really grounding under the body. If it's a high bowl, it's accelerating, so it's that connection with source. And then you have the bowls in the middle of the centering bowls, so you also have this whole channel going on. And then you have the alchemy within the bowl, which is working on something specific. So they are magical. They're these incredible, powerful, and they work. You can have one on its own, will work just as powerfully as having more together. And then within the bowls, without getting to music theory, certain notes played together will create a sacred interval. So like a perfect fifth or a perfect fourth, which is incredibly pleasing to the ear, to the body. So you've also got and they create geometric shapes within the body too. So and then I also use tuning forks, which sometimes at the beginning or the end of the session, and they have their each of these instruments has their own thing. Tuning forks are again, they will resonate at certain frequencies. So I have some that are intention. It's 528 and 432 together, which is the frequency to help us manifest, to help us intention setting, made by the wonderful Jonathan Goldman, who's an incredible sound healing pioneer. And then also I have chimes, which again are they're very I see them in the kind of fairy realm. You know, they're really beautiful, they're very twinkly, and they give us that kind of childlike joy. So yeah, there's just, and then I also have a drum, a beautiful drum, which has its own, it's like its own thing on it. It's the drum is incredibly powerful for clearing, for bringing in our ancestral guides.
Yeah.
And the drum I have, she's a divine feminine drum. She's very much about bringing us our power. So I work a lot with the sacral chakra and the throat chakra again, because those two are linked. You know, if we've got some trauma in our throat, it can often be coming from the sacral chakra.
Nice.
So that was quite an in-depth explanation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Just sort of the question that sort of arose in my mind while you were speaking was, let's say we're in survival mode. So many people are in survival mode in life, and you struggle sort of making ends meet. I think that's a root chakra issue. I'm not entirely sure, but I have the... So if I were to come to you, I'm in survival mode and I struggle making ends meet, and struggle also with sort of creative expression, then you would use instruments that will help sort of release old bad patterns and perhaps stuck emotional energy in those chakras. That's how it works?
Yes, and also voice too, because so that will be, you're right, a lot of that is in the root chakra, and then the creativity that I mentioned, a lot of that is in the sacral chakra. So a lot of this stuff is in those first three chakras, like, because that's where it ends up getting stuck. Also, it can get stuck around the heart, but it's like it often is pushed down into our lowest part of the body, so that then everything else gets stuck. You know, if it's stuck down here, nothing's moving up. This channel isn't open. So what I use the sound for is to open all of these chakra points, but then also what's the endocrine system too. So to just get that channel open so things can move.
Yeah.
And often, you know, I will have a conversation before the session starts, and kind of, you know, what are we working on? So the intention that I will set is, you know, if it's something like survival mechanism, we will look, you know, I will specifically ask for the guides and the ancestors, so with the voice, to come through, that are going to best help with that. So, and often that is earth energy. So it's a lot of very ancient sort of tribal sounds come through for that. And it's really remembering about who we are. And it's getting us out of fear, because once we can move this stuff, we realize that so much of this is Belinda Womack says something beautiful. So it's old beliefs, basically, that we've told ourselves, or other people have told us. And what the 12 archangels point out is that the word lie is in the word belief, which I love. So it's like, once this stuff starts moving, we start to realize that these are just lies that I've either told myself or that I've been told. And because this channel is open, I can now let that go. I can, I've got so much more freedom to connect with that root. And the root is just being out in nature is really helpful for the root too, just that grounding. But it's really about, we just become more aware of our true nature, and also what is not serving us once these emotions are out, once this block stuff is out, which is what the sound is doing. We're kind of like, we're expansive, we can connect much easier, and things are not, we don't jump into that fear mechanism. And fear is just a vibration, it's just a frequency. But by choosing a different frequency, we're listening to sound, and that's why that's why putting a piece of music on can be so powerful. If we're in any kind of like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit, let's put a calming song on. That's what it's doing. It's just changing your frequency, because a lower frequency and a high frequency can't exist in the body at the same time. You have to. So once we're clear, once we've got that stuff moving, we can identify it much more easily too. We can be like, oh God, I know what that was. I know that was, I remember something from my childhood. And now I can just forgive that, let that go, let that move out. And it's because we've recognized the emotion, the sound has, brought it out, we recognize it. And that's all effectively that these emotions want. They, once we bury them, they're just kind of like, hey, just acknowledge me and give me
Yeah.
some love, and then I can go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. It might also help us become more intuitive, I suppose. And what I tend to feel in life is that as long as you have your connection to spirit, source, your spirit guides, you'll be fine in life because they have all the answers. But what it is that the mind is so clouded by doubts and fears and limiting beliefs and forms of self-sabotage. And I suppose this is where sound healing can be really beneficial in sort of uprooting those beliefs and, let go of them.
exactly. Yeah, it can just bring them out, and it's wonderful because you don't have to think about it. You can. Some people really like to know what specifically it was that's causing that, and that can have its benefits. But the great thing about sound is you don't have to know. You can just be like, oh, okay, there was something there, and I feel better. It's gone. It's kind of you don't have to know exactly what that thing was that has been buried. Um, because it's, like I say, it's just the acknowledgement of like, okay, there was an emotion there. There was some sadness there, or there was some grief there, or there was some, you know, resentment can be a huge one. I carried a lot of resentment, which I didn't realize, through my part of the music industry, because I was not, after not being seen as an artist but by myself, then having to, help other artists, which I did willingly. And,
Yeah.
I love these people I was working with. But inside, there's a real resented part. There's a child within me going, "Why isn't this? I wasn't. Why I want to
Yeah.
be an artist?" And
Yeah.
so once I recognized that resentment and released that, it was kind of like, and I did that through sound by just getting quite angry one day whilst playing the shruti box, and I could feel this emotion coming up. And I'm like, what is this? Just kept playing, and it's, it came out, and there was tears and there was some anger. I did some shouting, but and I realized what it was. It's like, okay, now that can go, and I can move forward with joy and with gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, the sound is, I know I keep saying it, but it's so powerful.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And I was actually going to ask you if there is perhaps sort of a guided meditation or a sound you wish to share with us all today. And you said that when you woke up this morning, you were inspired to, you had an
Yes.
inspiration.
Yes, I woke up this morning, and I got the message to do a healing and around Mother Gaia. So, but it's about the gratitude for Mother Gaia. So about gratitude for ourselves and Mother Gaia. So yeah, I can do a little meditation, a little bit of sound, and okay, I'm just gonna move my computer around.
Yeah.
So I'm going to point this computer down to the bowls. So I'll just explain a little bit about what I'm using here. So this is the grandmother bowl. She's a sea bowl. So she's a root chakra bowl, very grounding. And then we have actually I'll go to the grandfather first. So this is our divine masculine. So we've got divine feminine, divine masculine, very tuned to the ancients because they're the iron oxide bowls. And he is an e-bowl. And then we have our beautiful, this is ruby and platinum. We have got a grounding bowl, we've got an accelerating bowl, and we've got a centering bowl. So this will work with opening up all of the chakras. Okay, so I would invite you to get comfortable. And if you'd like to close your eyes, I would invite you to do that.
Yeah.
Listen to the sound of this beautiful grandmother. And while you listen, if you just think about your connection to Mother Gaia, think about how she nurtures us, gives us food, water, shelter, feeds all of us, feeds all the animals. Just feel your connection to her beautiful crystalline core. And just send her some love and some gratitude. Thank you, Mother Gaia. And then I ask any ancestors who would like to come through. For their highest light and love. toes or anything that feels good. And then whenever you're ready, you can come.
Yes, I feel like a sound bath. Yeah.
Little mini.
In my mind, I traveled back to, so I'm Turkish. In my mind, I traveled back to Anatolia, where my family I mean, even though we're in Europe and in Istanbul today, but originally we're from Anatolia, and that's where I traveled back to.
Well, the first voice that came through was the real ancient, native voice. So that's beautiful that it took you back to your
That's
native.
That's what I wanted to say. The first voice I heard was something very ancient. It's almost not your voice.
Right.
Something very ancient that came through.
Yeah, it was very, very. So again, and it feels like it's often feels like it's multiple beings. So it's like a multiple beings with one energy, one sort of ancient grounding energy. But yeah, it was very, very ancestral what came through. So and that helps with the. I always find that the grandmother and the grandfather help bring through our ancestors too, who
Yeah,
you know
yeah, yeah. No,
learn how to live.
yeah. No, both of my grandparents were born in a little small village in Anatolia, so it makes sense actually. Yeah,
Love.
yeah. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah,
Thank you for allowing me to share that.
yeah. So, how can people find you if they want to? You offer one-on-one sessions, but you also offer a course, and you soon have a single coming out. Perhaps could you first share about the single that's coming out?
Yes. So the single interestingly links into the course, which I wasn't quite aware of until I finished the single. But so the course is it's called The Sound of Courage, and it's very much about bringing our courage out to be able to step into what we really want to do. And it's very much about our own unique gifts because we all have them. Um, and it's my ca- my cat likes to be involved in, and as Kathy
Oh,
will tell us, Kathy always tells me that when Jessie comes in, she wants to bring her energy in. So I've got some feline energy here.
she's
Um,
adorable. I could eat her up.
this is Jessie. um,
Oh,
but yeah, so the courage course is about bringing our unique gifts through. And what I found through working with sound was I was then able to get over my "you are not an artist" thing. And so the single that's coming out it's different from medicine songs in the way that it's not a sound healing song as such, but it's a song that was incredibly healing for me. It was something that I needed to bring out, and it is more along the lines of a traditional, what you would call pop song. So, and I'm releasing it comes out on Friday, the 9th of June. It's called Ley Lines. And it is very much it's a very personal song, but I'm able to bring it into the world without any preconception of, oh my God, what are people going to think? Is it going to fit in this category? I've managed to lose all of that through working with the sound. So, my courage has come forward. So that's really exciting. Um, and it will be on all of the platforms, Spotify, Apple, and then it will also I'll have it for sale on my website too if anybody wants to buy music like we used to in the old days,
yeah.
which I love. And then the website is katysamwell.com. The artist name to find the single and everything, it will be on my website, but it's Katy, just under Katy Samwell. And yeah, I offer sessions as well. So the sessions are I have two types of session. One is just the sound healing. So when I say just, obviously, uh, it's again, it will be personal to that person what we're bringing through. And then I also have a sound and an integration session. So it's a sound healing session, and then there's a session further down the line where we can integrate. So anything that's come up, we can work with a specific bowl if there's because often a bowl will really resonate. So, for example, this ruby bowl. Some people love her. I love her very much, but she's a heart bowl. So in the integration sessions, we can work one-on-one with just a particular bowl, or we can do all of the bowls again. So it's about kind of what came up, how it moved through, and if there's anything we need to ground back in. And then if you, like you did, as you subscribe to my website, you get Your Voice is Your Truth meditation, but also once a month I do a sound transmission. So that will be what I do here in the studio. So it won't just be the bowls. I'll sometimes bring in the keyboard. So they're more of a kind of feel out what's going on that month and what energy do we want to bring some more of. So I think I forget what last month's was. It may have actually been Mother Gaia. It may have been around Mother Gaia. But so it's, and so I'll do it like between a 5 and 10 minute sound healing, which I give to everybody free every month. And yeah, then occasionally I'll do live sessions. So I always notify subscribers, like I'll do a live group sound healing session. And yes, there's lots of, and then there's the apothecary on the website where you can find many, many recordings that I've done for different, you'll find all the old sound transmissions on there, but then there's sessions that, they're for specific, working on specific areas. So plenty of recordings as well.
Yes. Well, we could all do it with more courage and with more uplifting and in life. Yes. Katy, I thank you so much. I mean, I feel so peaceful, especially after this sound bath. I was a bit sort of tensed up earlier in the day, but I feel, and I really feel something very ancient sort of came through there. So, and I think the little kitty is eager for her mom's attention.
Well, she's just bringing in some love for everybody.
Yeah, she's
reminding everybody to feel their feelings. Cats represent feelings, don't they? So just feel your feelings, everyone.
You're such beautiful beings. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was just going to ask as the last question if there's a last sort of message you want to share with everyone, or maybe the kitty was, well,
I think it's like sound can be, whenever you're feeling any kind of tension, you don't have to put yourself into a sound bath or do anything like that. It can just be, think of a sound that soothes you, bird song. If you're in a place where you can just go outside and listen to the birds, if you have a cat purr, or just putting on a piece of music that will calm you. And just think, what you can think about is the difference, feeling the difference in your body, the tenseness beforehand, put the music on and feel how it relaxes the body. And that is a change of frequency. So what you do there is you can recognize a subtle change of frequency. And the more that you recognize those changes of frequency, the easier it is to do when you're in a panic state, or you might not have any specific sound that you can play. But then the other thing you can do is you can just make a sound. If you especially in a stressful situation, maybe go into a bathroom and just, if you're in a public place, just whatever noise wants to come out, and feel again that movement in the body, feel that change within the body. That's basically what sound is doing. What we're all trying to do is get back into these frequencies of gratitude, love, forgiveness. So sound can really help do that.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Katy. Thank you so much for having poured your life force energy and voice into this.
And thank you so much for doing this podcast, and
helping bring all these beautiful information around healing into the world. It's so needed. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing that and for having me on your show.
Thank you.